Greetings, innovators and leaders. This is AI for the C-Suite, your compass for navigating the exponential age. I'm your host, Chad Harvey, and we're here to bring you cutting-edge insights on AI tailored specifically for middle-market organizations. Buckle up as we embark on a journey through the transformative world of artificial intelligence. Today, I am very privileged to be joined by Sammy Greenwall, the co-founder and CEO of Henry.ai, a company that's proving AI isn't just the future, it's reshaping entire industries right now. Sammy's story is fascinating because it represents exactly the kind of transformation middle market leaders need to understand. After co-founding Lev, which grew from zero to Series B, Sammy made a bold pivot to create Henry, an AI-native platform that's revolutionizing commercial real estate. In just over a year, Henry has scaled to over $3 million in annual recurring revenue without hiring a single executive, making it the fastest growing AI-native PropTech company in the world from both revenue and user perspectives. What makes Sammy's approach particularly relevant for our audience today is his focus on AI-native organizational design. He's not just adding AI to existing processes, he's completely reimagining how businesses operate. His platform serves commercial real estate brokers and major investors like KKR and Blackstone, automating the creation of deal decks and marketing materials that traditionally required entire teams. Sammy brings a Stanford education, Y Combinator pedigree, and a real-world experience scaling companies to our conversation today. More importantly, he's wrestling with the same questions many of you face. How do you build lean, AI-powered organizations while maintaining the human touch that drives customer loyalty? Okay, with that table set, let's light this candle. Sammy, welcome to AI for the C-Suite.
It's great to be here, Chad. Thank you so much for having me and really looking forward to our chat.
So am I. And by the way, before we kick things off, it struck me as I was reading your bio, Sammy Greenwall almost sounds like the name of a comic book superhero like Peter Parker or something like that. So I want to know, do you have any alter egos that I should be aware of?
It's funny. I'm actually named after my great uncle Sammy, and he was a Jewish mobster in the Purple Gang. So that's where it came from. You can look him up online. Sammy Kurt.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah, there you go.
What great lore. All right, fantastic. Then I'm definitely going to watch my step because those genetics probably run deep.
They do, yeah, absolutely.
All right, Sammy, we're going to get right to it. When you went from Lev, which wasn't an AI company, as I talked about in the intro, to Henry, you made Henry an AI-first company from day one. Walk us through what made you realize that you had to completely rethink how you build a business.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think that the biggest difference with what we immediately felt with AI, pre-AI versus post-AI, which is really like we say back end of 2022, early 2023, is you could go from helping professionals, and they're talking about B2B SaaS, be more productive with their day-to-day job. Let's say that's creating 10, 20, 30% more productivity in what they're doing, but still requiring that person to complete the job. The big aha moment in AI was, oh my God, you can do everything, not just be a productivity tool that enhances an individual in their business, but completes the entire workflow, does it much faster than that individual would have done it otherwise, and does it much better and consistently, and never goes to sleep. And I think when we had that realization, we're like, this is the gold rush. We got to get there as soon as possible.
When I walk into a lot of companies, and I do a lot of workshops, a lot of training, there are some fundamental issues in even the best-run organizations in terms of where their information is, where their processes lie, are the processes known, and it feels like you almost decided from the get-go on this, we're just not going to worry about that because we've got a blank slate. And I got to imagine that was terribly refreshing, especially given the power of this technology.
Yeah, absolutely. It's pretty cool where you could basically go to an organization and not say, hey, tell me how X, Y, and Z happens. And in our specific situation, how do you build marketing collateral, underwrite deals, and get them out to market quickly? But like, how do we go in day one and rethink how this could happen in the future? You know, is it the same people in your organization who are even focused on this problem? Or can you completely remove those people and have them focusing on other parts of the operation from day one? And I think that was pretty remarkable. And what we've seen is not a replacement of labor at all, but actually this supercharging of labor where humans are now able to be so much more productive day to day, get way more done, and focus on higher order tasks. And everyone's happy about it too, because let's be honest, our solution is not sexy. It's very valuable, but it's really replacing the slow, arduous, repetitive work that no one needs to be doing, but has to do.
How much longer do you think it's going to be before that slow, monotonous, repetitive work that's being augmented right now is entirely replaced? And I don't know that there's a lot of data entry clerks out there that are even going to shed a tear over that because they'll be onto something more exciting. What do you think that timeline looks like?
Is it Bill Gates who says that you think things are going to happen faster, more things are going to happen faster in the short term, but it's going to impact us longer or more in the long term? I don't remember the exact saying of that. I think people are very scared, like day one today or in the next year, that like everyone's going to have their job replaced, and that's not what's going to happen. But I think if you look at 5 years or 10 years down in the horizon, what you're going to see is this massive change in how people interact. And the idea, or even of like a low level analyst in our world, is going to completely change because they're not going to be needing to be doing this work. I don't think it's a technical problem, to answer your question directly around when that happens. It's more around an adoption curve. And I think that especially in outdated industries like commercial real estate, it is going to take a longer time for people to adopt and just change their workflows.
Gotcha. Shots fired. Okay. Outdated industry. Loud and clear.
We love it. I mean, we love it. But people, they make a lot of money and they do it their own way. So
yeah. Fair enough. I've got to think as well that because you've been able to scale this thing to 3 million plus ARR without hiring a single exec, that this is getting some folks to sit up and pay attention even outside the industry and the sector that you're looking to disrupt. This methodology, it goes against everything that everybody's ever been taught about scaling a business, right? So what are you thinking about on a day-to-day basis in terms of where you go next and how you continue to scale and put this scaffolding together without perhaps the traditional overhead?
Yeah, it's a great question. And by the way, I think what we've done is probably not scalable. So we are going to need to be changing our workflow at some point. But listen, when I was starting this company, the second company, the most important thing to me by far was customer obsession and product obsession day one. And that doesn't just mean that, you respond to your customers every 30 minutes and you add their complaints to some ticketing system that never gets responded to. It means that you build the most delightful experience for them that when they come into Henry.ai, they can never imagine not being with that system. And believing that, pressing that from myself to my co-founder, Adam, to the entire technological and product development team at Henry.ai has really allowed us to build this kind of magnificent product. And when you have product-led growth and you have something that is so delightful, it makes everything a lot easier. So that's kind of first principles thinking on this. Second thing, to your point, is like around scalability. In the age of AI, we think every single day around, hey, do we need to hire someone for this role, or is there a way to automate this role? And more times than not, you actually can automate that task at will. It might take a little bit of time. It might not be perfect all at once. But if you're able to do that, you're just able to create massive leverage in yourself. And it's not just about cost savings for us, right? We've raised a bunch of money. We're not like, oh, we can't hire people because we don't have the money. It's more around, if you have a tight-knit organization with very few people who are delivering massive impact, you can just get so much more done. It's unbelievable. The leverage is so much higher. So we actually are fearful of hiring people because we think we're going to lose momentum. We think we're going to lose speed, and we think we're going to lose this like incredible creative organization, innovative organization that we've built to date.
I hate to go immediately to a pop culture reference, but all I could think about as you're talking right there is Silicon Valley. And I'm thinking about that tight-knit squad, right, in especially the first couple seasons. And it occurs to me that you've got an opportunity here to have nothing but A players that are totally bought into the company culture, that are running a million miles an hour, not because they're fearful, but because they are, in fact, bought in. So what does it feel like behind the scenes at Henry.ai these days?
I love what I do. End of story. I think that, and I think everyone, one thing that could tell myself sooner in life is just to do what you love. I think I'm really privileged to have that day in and day out. We work, 24 hours a day. Maybe I guess we sleep 8 hours. We work 15 to 16 hours a day, and we love it. And it's not just me and my co-founder; it's a whole team. The energy, the innovation, the potential that we have within the org. It's just so it's so clear. It's so invigorating for everyone that people just love being here. Now, every day is tough. We have customers that are upset. We have product that breaks. We have someone who's complaining about something that we didn't catch. We get delays on a sales side, on a contract that we thought was going to get signed. So we face this these constant daily pains, but we take it as a team and we take it in stride and we take it because we know we're going to do better. And at the end of the day, people are just really happy being here. It's awesome.
Could you? I love how you channeled the daily pains and the issues that come up. Could you give me an example of a daily pain that came up that resulted in a just a superior outcome, or maybe it even changed the way that you were approaching a problem or thinking about things?
Yeah, totally. I mean, we just had an entire conversation today at the lunch table with our team. The short of it was that we had a customer who had come onto the product. They were a paying customer, but they were only given sort of one deal that they could run through our platform. And we hadn't set up the expectations with them where they were like, hey, it's a one-time deal, and then you have to commit to a full contract. So they kind of came on to the call and they're like, we love your product. It's amazing, but this was a test deal. It wasn't a real deal. And like, we didn't have our processes set up and there's certain people who weren't aware of it. Can we run another deal through here? And we just had this aha moment. Like, we could be frustrated. We should have set that up in advance. We could have gotten that contract signed because they were great. But what we realized is, hey, we're not actually setting expectations up for these customers better. So we need to rethink our process when we're onboarding customers, setting expectations with them and making sure that these deals that they're running through, even if it is a one-time trial, is a real deal. And I think that kind of thinking, it was between our CTO Adam was talking with me, one of our sales reps, and then our account manager all at the table. And that kind of like team, single team minded workshop makes us really, really, really good.
Mm-hmm. I want to lean into that idea a little bit more, and I know we're moving away from AI. We're gonna slide back here in a few moments, but you just mentioned something now in terms of that lunch table conversation and the small size of the team, and you made a comment earlier in our discussion here, even though we've only been speaking for about 10 minutes, about how this is probably not going to scale, right? In terms of the way it's set up right now. So, how do you envision this scaling, and what do you think you're going to gain, and what do you think you might lose?
So yeah, it's a great question. I think that as we bring on more and more customers, we're going to need to build out more customer support, roles. We're going to need to have more people on product engineering to keep the app up and alive. So I think there's naturally going to be this growth, even if we're like forcing it to not come as hard as possible. So the way that we keep it is that we have a really, really, really strong company culture, and we hire really, really slow. And even though that's painful in the short run, it ends up working excellently in the long run because we are almost always hiring someone who ends up being a great fit for the company. And I can say that I've learned that with experience. If you hire someone, even if they're a B player, it turns your culture into a C organization overnight. So it's incredibly important that you spend so much time up front making sure that you're not only hiring A people, but you're also hiring people who are going to blend with your culture and set the tone with what your organization needs to do every single day.
Beautiful. So even though we're disrupting space with technology, it's all about the people still.
It's all about the people. I mean, we spent 3 hours this week finally going through like a legitimate culture building exercise so that we were really all aligned with what we wanted this company to be like in the future. And the craziest part is that everyone independently came up with their own ideas. We all shared them, and it was exact match, even though we had never orchestrated before. And that's what you talk about, like a really coherent team that's on the same page all the time, knows what's important to the company, and it's not even spoken. That's what we want to continue to do as we scale.
That's cool. And for our audio-only listeners, I think it's worth noting, you can barely even see the bruises from the misplaced trust fall. You mentioned team building.
It's below the legs. Yeah.
All right. Let's go back into the core business here. And I appreciate you indulging me a little bit about the company culture and your build, because in addition to technology, I think you can't build the tech without talking about company culture. And so many people are very interested in founders' stories. So thanks for giving us a little peek behind the curtain there.
My pleasure.
All right. You have famously predicted that brokers are going to break free from big firms because AI and the tech that it enables is going to give these brokers superpowers that they've never had before. When you look at other industries, and you almost could characterize this as a David versus Goliath type story, what other industries and what other areas do you see ripe for this story playing out because of AI?
Yeah, I think that any vertical markets that are like heavily focused on, or I guess there's a heavy expense on the back office and support roles. That's really, really where I think there's going to be, sorry, on the other side, you have revenue generating salespeople. That's really where you're going to have similar outcomes to what we might see in commercial real estate. So, if you take insurance brokerage, for example, where like a huge amount of insurance is based off of, processing and back office and closing these transactions. But the salesperson is really just doing their own thing and representing themselves. That's another vertical where there can be a lot of disruption happening soon. Take other spaces where major brokerages are just really focused on back office replacement. And you're going to see this ability for individuals to sort of come out and say, hey, why do I need this big company anymore? I have my back office taken care of, my processing, my payments. All I really need is an office space. And by the way, I can work from home or just one of these. I'm in a phone booth right now. And you can start running your own business. And that's pretty epic and pretty exciting. The other part of this that you might see is with these larger companies, and you talk about, JLL or CB, the big ones in commercial real estate brokerage, they're going to start having incredible gross margin expansion. They're going to start becoming a lot more profitable. And similarly, they might actually be able to start paying their brokers a lot more money because right now, a huge percentage of their splits are going to that same back office. So as you continue to make these businesses a lot more capitally efficient and higher revenue generating, everyone ends up winning.
Do you think that that's the natural drive in a situation like that, in terms of both simultaneously driving down costs and being able to share revenue in a way that previously wasn't? Or do you think we're in a race toward commoditization?
I think that the best people in their profession, especially in sales-based professions, which is what my customers go into, will end up making a lot more money. Both because costs are driving down, but also because like the quality of services that you can provide is way higher. And I'll give you an example. Commercial real estate broker on our platform previously would have to wait 2 weeks to put together, the marketing collateral for one of their clients to sell their office building in Soho. Well, now I can go to that same client because I'm using Henry, and in 3 hours I can say, hey, I have the whole marketing collateral document done. Can we go sell this today? And that will drive a much happier customer experience, better retention, and more buildings sold. So that there's both of those things happening today.
Without giving away any secret sauce, you just touched on a topic that I've kicked around with a couple other guests recently, in terms of marketing collateral and AI-enabled tools that are generating marketing collateral and the impact that that has on search engine optimization, or whatever you want to call the next iteration of this generative engine optimization. There's half a dozen terms kicking around. So here's my question, again, without giving away the secret sauce. What do you do to ensure that each client's materials that are packaged that way are done so in such a way that they're going to stand out and they're going to be distinguished from a lot of the other AI-generated slop that's out there?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's funny because when you ask about like our company, the first word that you would think is automation, Henry.ai. But the first thing that we actually think about is design principles. And what does that actually mean? Every single deck that's generated on Henry is based off of an individual's broker's preferences, stylistically, design oriented, whatever that might be. So their color palettes, their logos, the way that they want to talk about certain points, the kinds of maps that they want to draw, the different types of photo placement that they'll have within this is individually built out for that user. So if you're on Henry, no one will ever know that you're building a Henry deck because it looks like it's coming directly from you. And that's the beauty of the platform.
Excellent. You also touched on it coming from your clients in their voice. And I'm interested, have you gotten enough data or enough users yet to begin to start to map different types of brand tones from client to client? And do you see categories, patterns, segmentations? Yeah, you're smiling. I'm going to shut up now.
No, it's a great question. The way that our content is generated, because we're talking about 50-page documents, it's entirely based off of previous example decks that we have from that specific client. So we are obsessive over capturing that specific client's tone, their key points, what they think is important to talk about within a specific deal. So there might be one client, who like always needs to talk about the 4-block location radius and talk about major retailers that are within that location. And there might be another client selling the exact same building, and all they care about is talking about the numbers and the financials. And they use bolding and they use long words. All of that sort of nuance is so important when you're thinking about the customer experience and building something that really works for them, and also differentiates what one deck looks like from another, makes a person feel like it's really being built for them, which it is.
Excellent. I think you've begun to answer this question, but I'm going to sharpen it and ask it here very directly. As organizations outside of your market, or maybe even within, are looking at what you and other folks are doing, and they're maybe an established company, maybe they're large, maybe they're mid-sized, is there any advice that you would give them in terms of how to, I don't want to say defend, but better position themselves against a lot of these AI native startups? I know I'm asking you something here that's almost against the grain for you, but is there a path to success for tried and true companies that are already established that are not AI native startups?
I think that the short answer is yes, of course, and a lot of these companies are going to be around for a long time because they've built such defensible moats. I mean, time will tell, but that's my prediction on this. I think that what's happened with these large companies, and I'm kind of indirectly answering your question, is that there are so many layers of bureaucracy that and the founder or the CEO at this point is so far removed from what's actually happening on the ground floor, it becomes incredibly difficult to innovate. You know, it's the innovator's dilemma, is what we see forth. But then you look at companies like, I think the best example right now is Meta, right? Like one of the three biggest companies in the entire world. You have Mark Zuckerberg individually recruiting, you know, his own team of technologists with this AI race, and he's in there in the lab coding it up. And that's like what you see. That's what you call exceptional leadership and founder-led leadership. And I think a company like that, with a founder who's still thinking that way, is going to have a massively higher chance of surviving over the long term and thriving over the long term, and actually capturing a lot more market share.
I think that's a very fair answer. And since you talked about the passion of a founder, I think this is a great opportunity to ask you about that famous story of you coding on your wedding night in Mexico to save a customer's deal. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that. And I'd also love to know your perspective on living in a world where AI can handle so much automatically. How do you make sure you don't lose moments like those that make customers feel that you're going to jump off a bridge for them?
Listen, the first thing to say is you always have to be jumping off a bridge for your customers. And we have our customers pinging us 24/7 on Slack and Teams and email and on my personal phone. And I pick up the call every single time still for every single customer. So that's always going to be happening. And, you know, as I mentioned earlier, customer support and obsessing over your customer service is truly what will build your company to be differentiated over the long term. So, yeah, we totally believe that. Back to the initial story. It's a true story. It's a true story. We were in Mexico. Company was just starting off. We had just gotten our first paying customer, and it was a anxious and nervous customer because they had a big deal in front of them, and they were trying to run the deal through the system, and the deck would not generate. So my co-founder Adam literally came to my room. I remember this, and we sat in there for 30 minutes debugging what was going on, regenerating the deck, making sure that everything came out all right. Ran down. I had to go through. Obviously, we get ready for the ceremonies, and made it perfectly on time. We were good on that front, and we got a call, not the next day, a couple of days later from our broker, and he said, "Hey, pretty great work here. I was up against 7 other brokers for this listing because they were trying to win the property, and the owner, the seller of the building, ultimately went with his listing." He said, "Honestly, the reason he went is the deck was so well designed and so creative around how they were thinking about selling the asset that it wasn't even close." And that was sort of like our ticker. We're like, wow, we're onto something. We're onto something pretty big.
Very cool. I love those types of stories, and hopefully you're still married. So,
I am happily married.
All right, very good. You didn't chase her away with a midnight coding session.
No,
Love
she's
it.
also a founder, so you know she gets it.
So I think this question and this story, it goes right to the heart of a lot of what we're talking about, and you've alluded to the fact that you put design principles first, that you're very human focused. How do you think about designing AI systems that enhance rather than replace this customer intimacy?
Yeah, so we are trying to always make sure that our customers' life is better and that they are more efficient and that they are making more money. So that's why we're talking to them every single day and every single week. And what we found was, you know, even in this simple business where we're just creating these decks and they're not simple at all, there are hundreds of different workflows that go into building the deck. So whether that's content generation around figuring out what local employers are near this asset, or it's figuring out what tenants are in this building and the future cash flows, or it's mapping out, you know, what the comparable properties look like close by. The point is there's so many different things that go into building this deck. So how do we think about this? Well, we try to do everything all at once. We try to use a single agent approach, do the entire deck end to end, automate the whole thing. And really didn't work. So what we ended up doing was rethinking how we were going to build our stack, and went through this multi-agent model, which is incredibly complex, but effectively what it is hundreds of different mini agents within Henry.ai tasked with just one thing, completing that task, handing it over to the next agent who's either working, waiting for them to complete their work, or working at the same time as them, then having all these agents come together to build something that's beautiful. So if it's one agent that's doing market research, and it's another agent that's doing underwriting, and it's another agent that's doing formatting, for example, those agents are now able to do each one of those tasks so much better than this single agent approach that was trying to do everything. So that was a big insight for us as far as how we're trying to build this out.
That's beautiful. And I do mean that. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful framework. And I'd love to dig in a little bit more. Again, never trying to figure out what's the exact secret sauce here, because I don't want you to reveal trade secrets. But you and I were talking before the call about how frothy the conversation is these days about agents. And ChatGPT's most recent drop, we're recording this on a day when they just released GPT-5, is sure to bring more to this conversation. So here's my question for you about those hundreds of agents. What types of models are you finding work best for them? Are you needing to train your own? Are you able to use off-the-shelf models? Let's talk a little bit about what this looks like here, to the extent that you can share.
Totally. Yeah, no, that's completely fine. I can just say that we're certainly not using one model. We're plugged into a multitude of models. And what we've actually found is that certain models are better at completing tasks by many folds than others for our specific vertical. So for example, models that are parsing data for us. So someone drops in a PDF, take that data, we underwrite and structure it. There are specific models that are much, much better than that, but much, much worse at generating original content on why a deal is a good deal, or looking at previous deals from this specific user to make insights around what should be written about this transaction. So we're using 3+ models right now on any single deal, and they're for different tasks within that entire workflow of creating the decks.
Excellent. Are you finding that there are models that you are able to fine tune a little bit better to act as orchestrators over multiple models? As I know you said you couldn't automate the entire workflow, but are you finding that you're able to chunk or batch some of that into 2, 3, 4, 5 different? Yeah. Okay. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah, no, I would just say right now that it's a multi-agent approach, and there's hundreds of different models working at the same time to build any deck that's on our platform. And it depends. There's some decks that are a lot more complicated. They require less. They request less complexity, and there are some that are a lot more complicated. But we have not gotten it down to a point where it's batched like you described. And I don't see that happening in the near term. And we'll see what happens in the next couple of days. I'll get back to you.
Fair enough. All right, let's pivot back hard into real estate here. I work with a lot of clients around the country, many of whom either professionally or on the side, on a hobby, small hobbies, invest in commercial real estate. And this is a notoriously traditional and relationship-driven area. So how did you manage to crack the code on getting brokers that are 50+ years old to become AI experts and evangelists? And what might other market leaders learn from your approach here?
Yeah, I think it's not about focusing on the product or what you're building and so on yourself, but it's actually deeply understanding their problems. And I think that's what most founders get wrong, is that they don't actually think about the problem that they're trying to solve for someone else. And our unique insight in our world was basically figuring out that it takes 2 weeks to put this deck together, which is literally stopping people from generating more revenue, which is crazy. Tell that to a regular person, that's an insane concept. You're telling me that there are real estate professionals that have been doing this for 20 years, are making millions of dollars, and they have to wait 2 weeks to get this marketing document put together. And if they don't complete that marketing document, they literally cannot sell the property. Yeah. Okay. Well, when you start with explaining, hey, that problem goes away, that's where people get excited. And then you can get into the nuances of the product, and you can explain what you're trying to do on there. But you really need to find a hair on fire problem that's relatable to this specific vertical. When you have that, you can really convince a lot of people to do some crazy things, like log into a software and build a tech.
You just said something, Sammy, that is really making me reflect here. I've had some conversations recently with folks. There's a school of thought out there that eventually AI is going to eliminate most user interface. And you're nodding your head, so you've seen that. And I'm wondering, what is the potential impact of that potential change, if I can use the word potential 3 times in a sentence? What is the potential impact of that change on marketing decks and the type of work that you're doing. How do you see this possibly evolving, or is this just a non-starter and this is a purely theoretical idea?
Not at all. I think you're absolutely right. And I think that the best products are going to meet customers where they are. So, for example, if your customers are always in Outlook and Gmail, right, and that's how they correspond and that's how they ask for someone to do something or to complete a task, why can't your software be corresponding through email as well, or through text message, or literally through, even voice recording? So, yeah, I think my prediction is sort of similar to what you're saying. People want to stay on their legacy systems that specifically email, text, and phone. And I think that the best companies are going to be able to build to make it easier for their customers to be able to find value without lifting a finger. So that I completely agree with what you said.
Okay. All right. It reminds me of that scene from Billy Madison. That was a perfect answer. I have nothing else to add. Well done. So before I leave this topic, though, of cracking into a legacy industry, and given your focus on the users and the design principles here and the problems at hand, how do you find it's best to train users on these new AI tools without overwhelming them? Because even the most simplistic chatbot interface still perplexes people.
Yeah, definitely do not build a chatbot if you're selling to commercial real estate professionals. Don't try to be cool. It's funny because no, I mean, it's actually, you have these incredibly talented engineers and product people, and they're like, oh, I want to use like best in class systems and best in class practices right now to build the software. I'm like, why? You're selling to a 53-year-old in Omaha, Nebraska. He doesn't even know, he couldn't even tell you what Salesforce is, or the difference between, '04 and '05, what you just described. So the answer is build as simple a product as you can that the customers as used to as they have been previously. So for us, for example, the way that our like table functionality works is it's a copy paste of Microsoft Excel because our customers are in Excel all the time. So we just try to, and the way that you can update slides and change things around is very, very similar to PowerPoint. So we really have just tried to meet the customer where they are as much as possible to allow them to take the training wheels off as quickly as possible and get value from our product.
Mm-hmm. I'm sitting back here because you are someone who's got deep convictions. It comes through loud and clear. And a lot of people that I interview on this show have deep convictions. I know from some of our prior conversation that those convictions got called into question by folks. I think you've even spoken about how your parents questioned you when you started Henry.ai. So what kind of advice, what kind of counsel would you give to folks that are trying to bet big on AI when everybody around you thinks that you're absolutely crazy? How do you maintain that conviction and that belief that is so critical to getting across the finish line?
Totally. Well, first of all, I love my parents and they're extremely supportive. But, when I told them I was going to do my first startup when I was 23, and then I took 3 days off of Lev and started my second one, both times they said, hey, maybe, try to take a second to think about what you really want to do. But yeah, I just had a lot of conviction. Listen, startups are not for 99% of people. I would say out of every 100 people who want to try a startup, it's really only built for one of those 100 people. So that's just the tricky reality of it. But when you are building, I guess it's a really special time. And the only person that you can really count on is yourself and your co-founder. So my biggest advice is get the co-founder, like the one that I have, who is truly your equal and who will be in the trenches with you every day when nothing is working, when no VCs are picking up your call and no customers want to use your product, and you're facing massive churn and you don't know how to hire X or Y or Z role. You have that person next to you. It's like another form of life partner, and it's incredibly valuable. So that would be my biggest advice to anyone who's trying to build a company is don't do it alone.
What does your co-founder bring to the table that you don't have?
My co-founder is like a lot more technical than me and has a better sense for the product. So he leads all product and engineering within the company. And that also like kind of trickles into customer support and customer success, understanding what our customers need and building the functionality for them as quickly as possible. He's doing all of that. It's also, my sounding board on any major decisions for making for the business.
With good partnerships, there's a myth out there that people just get along, right? But that never happens. I'm sure there are times when there's friction points between the two of you, and I'm wondering even more than the friction points, the ability to discern valid concerns or signal from actual noise. How do you two thread that in a constructively professional manner that doesn't back down from either of your two convictions? How do you thread that needle there?
Well, first of all, Adam is a lot better at it than I am. So that's what I would start. It starts with Adam. But yeah, I think the way that you need to approach the conversation is not I'm right, I'm wrong. And by the way, I fall I have that fault sometimes and it really is not productive, but it's like really trying to understand what the other person is saying and what their position is and asking them questions as to why they got there. Not the questions to trick them, in a Socratic method, but the questions to really understand why they've gotten to the point where they're thinking. And then ultimately, you either convince them to go in your direction, they convince you to go in your direction, or you make a judgment call there. And we don't like to leave conversations with an unanswered question. So we always leave with a judgment call. And it's typically who feels stronger about the position. And typically one of us does feel stronger. There are rare occasions where it really gets escalated and we need to have another conversation on it. But we always want to make sure that we have clarity with our communication and that the direction is very, very clear after we leave those conversations.
What's the shortest period of time between a judgment call and when you needed to revisit or retrench from that judgment call?
I can answer that.
Fair enough. Oh, all right. Let's shift back a little bit away from the founder and behind the curtain here to the world of AI and the fact that a lot of these tools are very quickly becoming commoditized. And I'm interested here with that as kind of the foundational element. How do you build lasting competitive advantage when things are moving so fast toward commoditization? And what prevents larger players from simply copying what you build?
Yeah, I think that it's all about building vertical and not horizontal. And I think the more vertical you can get, the better you can have around differentiation. And when I think about our product, I think the most interesting thing is that we've probably spent 40% of the time, if not more, thinking about what questions to prompt the user to make sure that they're giving us the information that they actually want to give us, not the information that they think they should give us, but the information that they want to give us to complete the workflow. So we've gotten so deeply ingrained with understanding like how our customers think and how they would even share information with us and what they want the end result to be relative to what they are telling us. You're literally thinking for them or on behalf of them, predicting what they want. And as good as the models are going to get, I don't ever think that they're going to be able to get into specific verticals and be able to ask the right questions to get the end result for the customer. And the customer's not even literally telling you what they're trying to get an endpoint to. So go vertical, go deep, and really, really go deep on the workflow and understanding how to deliver value for that specific customer. And I think you'll have a lasting competitive advantage. That's my view. Could be wrong.
No, I think that's a very fair answer. Do most of your clients truly understand the result that they want, or do they end up telling you a bunch of stuff along the way that's superfluous to the end result?
Yeah, that's right. The customer is ultimately it's the latter. They're ultimately telling us a lot of different things about what's going on and what they want, and we can sort of predict what they want based off of past activity. So, and I can give you a lot of examples of that, but like the simplest point is like a customer sends you an underwriting model and says, "Hey, we want to include all this information in the underwriting model," but we actually know from past decks that they actually only want to include a specific tab within that underwriting model and specific tables within that underwriting model, and that there's certain cells that they want to exclude because we have the training data. So then we can deliver them a finished product, which is giving them the right information, even though they told us, over the conversation that they wanted us to include all the data that they had sent over. That happens all the time.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel that there will be a point where you have a more refined intake process or a more automated intake process that allows you to kind of move past much more quickly than you are already able to some of that stuff, for lack of a better term, that the customer tries to put up front?
Totally. Yeah. I mean, listen, every single day we're getting better and better. Our decks are getting shipped faster and faster, and the customers are having less comments and less time in the product, which is ultimately what we want. It's a little non-intuitive, but the less our customers are in the product, the more happy they are, right? Because the less they're making adjustments. So we continue to scale that up and are excited about the progress we've made.
Gotcha. What do you measure? You talked about ship time on the decks. Do you segment by size or complexity of, what's your metric for success with ship time on decks?
Yeah, I think just decreasing that number as quickly as possible. There still is latency and a lot of compute that goes into building every single deck, so they are not shipped instantaneously. For most of our customers, going from 2 weeks to 4 hours works really well. But ultimately, we want to do it instantaneously. So continuing to build better and better workflow tooling and make the latency better and better, so that we can get these decks out to our customers faster and faster.
Gotcha. Do you, what would be the appropriate, I guess, question here? I'm thinking about how sometimes with the frontier model AIs, I'll get a pop-up that gives me two separate answers and it wants me to choose between the two. Do you offer different options to your customers in terms of the final product, or once you've kind of honed in on their design palette and everything else, you're locked and loaded and it's just wash, rinse, repeat?
Yeah. Have you ever heard of the book, The Paradox of Choice? Basic concept on it is that human beings actually want as few choices as possible, and the more choices you give them, the less happy they become and the more confused they get. We really believe that deeply with our customers, and we want to have them click as few buttons and make as few choices as possible, where we know what they want without them telling us and without us having to make any sort of question, send any sort of question their way. So that's really how we've been building the product from day one.
That is absolute gold, and I can guarantee that the paradox of choice will be a soundbite making its way on LinkedIn and YouTube in the near future. So, well stated. All right. I want you to put on your future casting hat here for just a moment. When you and I had talked before the episode the other week, I know we talked about what the future could look like, and it's always foolish to make concrete predictions. One of the broad brushstroke predictions that I have, though, is that there will be a bloodletting, for lack of a better term, very similar to what we saw at the end of the 90s going into the 2000s with the dot-com boom. So I think there are going to be substantial changes afoot for organizations that don't embrace AI. And I'm wondering, from your vantage point of building an AI native company, do you agree with my statement? Do you disagree? And what do you think middle market leaders should be doing right now to avoid being collateral damage?
I think it's 100% true. And I think that it goes back to that initial quote that I butchered. But in the short term, there's going to be less impact than people imagine. You go in 6 months, 12 months, 18 months from now. But if we take stop time right now, when a decade into the future, the entire world is going to be fundamentally operating in a different way. And it's going to be operating in an AI first way. And companies that embrace AI, or that are early players within the AI space, or taking it under their wing to get a competitive advantage in whatever industry they're doing, even outside of software, are going to be the future companies that are dominating this world. And I feel extremely confident about that, with my predictive wand, that I can say that right now. But yeah, that's really how I see the world fundamentally changing. Now, there are obviously going to be some exceptions. If you sell cable cars to the government and your family's been selling them for 200 years, you know what? You might not need to embrace AI, because selling to the government's a pretty good business. But I think few and far between are going to be able to have that kind of competitive differentiation.
You joke, but I actually work with somebody that runs a cable car. So, hey, they're out there. It's real.
Good business.
Yeah, right. It depends. A lot of moving parts, a lot of analog there. In terms of the pace of change and what we're talking about here, from where you're sitting, and I think you have a pretty good, clear-eyed view of what's going on in tech land as well as in business land from what you've said. Are there any warning signs out there, if I'm running a company, that I need to be paying attention to, that I'm falling behind or that I am not adequately preparing for the future?
I think that it's such a hard question to answer, so I want to be delicate with it. But I do think that if and you're seeing this a lot of the time, if your understanding of what AI does, if the answer to the question is I use Chat GPT to answer questions, then you're in a really bad position right now, and you should be thinking about how AI can be impacting your life a lot more than the simple questions that you're asking it on a day-to-day basis. Workflow automation being the largest one, and what I talked about earlier, like what parts of my workflow today can I automate with AI? What parts of my company and my organization might be able to leverage AI to be significantly more productive on a day-to-day basis? That should be the mindset. And again, the scariest thing is we were listening to this podcast, say, yeah, I use AI. I log into ChatGPT and I ask you questions, or how to respond to an email. You're really behind right now.
Yeah. I think that's sage, insightful advice that more people need to hear. So we're getting short on time. Our time always goes very quickly. So in order to land this plane on time, proverbially speaking, I want to ask you one or two other questions here. I want to go back to the idea of Henry.ai scaling and some of the things that you talked about earlier in our conversation with respect to scaling and how you're going to need to have some additional headcount. You're going to need to go some more traditional routes. What challenges with respect to scaling are you anticipating that you are hoping, maybe not certain of, but hoping that AI can solve?
I think that we're going to be able to bring in human beings who are incredibly talented in AI first, who previously would need to be running organizations that were, 3, 5, 10x bigger than what they're running today, and are able to do that themselves. So what I'm really hoping is going to happen is the chain of communication and the number of people that are talking with an organization to get things done becomes much smaller. And therefore you're replacing all of this noise, right, with actual signal. And you're able to be a lot more efficient with back to the customer. What does the customer want? How do we get that into production as quickly as possible? And how do we distribute it and sell it? So I want each person to just be 3, 5, 10x more productive than they were before. If it's a sales rep that was closing $500,000 before AI, well, now can they close $1.5 billion, right? It's an account manager who could only manage up to 30 accounts. Well, why can't they manage over 150 accounts with AI automation? Those are the sorts of things that we think about every day at the org.
Got it. Let's swing out and take the vantage point of a middle market company that is thinking about introducing AI into their organization. They are not an AI first or an AI native company like Henry.ai. Not knowing specific industries, not knowing a lot of their history, is there any general advice that you would give to a leader of an established organization that wants to begin introducing AI into their organizational structure and starting to look to the future with that technology?
Totally. I think there's 3 things you can do this is just like off the shelf, easy things to get done. First of all is think about email. What are you doing in your email right now? And how are you using AI to reply to people, to set auto follow-ups and so forth? There's a bunch of different tools that you can get into on that front. I think that's a really, really high leverage thing to do. Day one, we use Superhuman, but there's a lot of other systems out there. 2 is your CRM. If you're still manually updating I hope you have a CRM, but if you do have one and you're manually updating your HubSpot or your Salesforce, you should really think twice around all of these new plugins or AI native CRMs that are able to do all of the CRM updating on your behalf. And that's a massive pain point across all industries. And then the third thing, note takers. Every single call that you have should have a note taker in it, can record that conversation, transcript it, summarize it, and then you can do anything with it, whether it's sending a follow-up if it's a customer call, or it's putting those notes into, your corporate sort of brain to make sure that everything is getting updated and the system is continuing to learn and be smarter. So those are kind of 3 off-the-shelf things that I could think of for our users that can make them a lot more efficient day one.
Perfect. Sammy, I couldn't be more hopeful that you are, in fact, the first billion-dollar AI native startup out there. I'm going to wish you guys much success. As we conclude our conversation here today, is there anything else that you think folks should know about this world or about your organization? Any parting wisdom other than the nuggets you've dropped along the way in our conversation today?
I'm just going to say the same thing, AI or not. If you're building a B2B SaaS company, all you should be thinking about is your customer and how to delight them, and think deeply about their pain, listen to them. And when you do that, amazing and magical things will happen. So that's all I can ask for people to do.
That's beautiful. And that just goes directly to one of the things that I've been maintaining for several years, which is this technology, I think, has the possibility and the potential for making us more human, not less human, if we treat it appropriately. And so I love the fact that you're really leaning into the human experience here. Wonderful thoughts. For our listeners that want to learn more about you, your work, learn about Henry.ai, maybe you got some future clients out in the audience there, what is the best way for them to do all of the above?
Yeah, awesome. You can connect with me on LinkedIn, Sammy Greenwall. And if you are a commercial real estate professional or just generally curious to learn more about what we're up to, I'm always happy to talk. Sammy at Henry.ai is my email. Pretty easy.
Beautiful. I really appreciate your time and you taking that time to share your insights with us today. This was a really interesting conversation, and you guys are in a really unique space. I wish you much success now and in the future, Sammy. So thank you.
Chad, thanks so much for the thoughtful interview. I had a blast. It was really, really nice talking with you.
You bet. For our listeners out there, thank you once again for tuning into AI for the C-Suite, where we are committed to helping middle market leaders thrive in the exponential age. If you found value in today's discussion, please be sure to subscribe to our podcast, follow us on all the socials, and visit our site, aiforthecsuite.com. Join us next time as we continue to unlock the potential of AI for your organization, and until then, keep your algorithms running, your leadership evolving, and your AI in check. Take care, everybody.